I'll try to explain where all of this really started. Honestly, it started because my wife began going to psychotherapy. And during therapy, she realized that her mother and sister had a lot of narcissistic behavior patterns. After her sessions, she talked to me about it. She would share things she realized during therapy, her emotions, her insights, and different situations involving her mother and sister. She would describe the way they acted in certain moments, how manipulative they could be, how emotionally harmful some behaviors were. And while she was talking about those situations, even though I was still deeply stuck in my own narcissistic behavior at the time, I started noticing similarities. I realized that in some situations, I acted the same way, or sometimes almost identically. Back then, I still didn't have much self-awareness, not real self-awareness anyway. So at first, I only recognized small pieces of myself in those stories, but honestly, looking back now, I think a huge part of my behavior, my reactions, my conversations, even the way I saw people, was deeply affected by narcissistic patterns. And this kept happening over and over again. My wife would talk about those situations, and I would keep recognizing more and more of myself in them. And I have to say, when I first truly started seeing those similarities in myself, I felt horrible. And what does a narcissistic person usually do when they feel bad? They react automatically. They don't sit with the feeling. They don't process it in a healthy way. They just try to get rid of the discomfort as fast as possible. Sometimes by lashing out at their partner, sometimes through sarcasm, sometimes through anger, mockery, passive aggression. The behavior becomes automatic. A narcissistic person usually doesn't need to consciously think, how do I escape this feeling? The reaction is already programmed. And for me, that realization felt really bad, especially because narcissistic people usually hate being confronted with their own behavior. They hate hearing that they hurt someone, or that something about the way they act is unhealthy, because everything is distorted through ego and defense mechanisms. A healthier person might react with self-reflection. Maybe they would ask questions. Maybe they would genuinely want to understand why someone feels hurt. But narcissistic behavior works differently. Instead of self-analysis, the goal becomes escaping shame and emotional discomfort as quickly as possible. And I think eventually, a lot of different things started coming together for me at the same time. The conversations with my wife, watching how much her mother's and sister's behavior hurt her, recognizing myself in those same patterns and slowly becoming more self-aware. All of that together started making me dislike my own behavior more and more. And at first, I still reacted like a narcissistic person would, trying to ignore it, trying to push it away, trying to convince myself I was fine. But eventually, I couldn't fully avoid it anymore. I started living with that discomfort, feeling it more deeply, until eventually I genuinely started wanting to change. I honestly don't remember the exact moment I fully decided to change. But those conversations with my wife helped me more than anything else. At some point, I even admitted it to her directly. I told her, yeah, I do act this way too in certain situations. And in a strange way, she became the person who pushed me to start changing those behaviors. And honestly, I still don't know if I would have done it completely on my own. Because first of all, I don't think I would have even recognized those patterns deeply enough by myself. I don't think I would have had the level of self-analysis or self-criticism needed to truly want change. Because narcissistic behavior usually avoids difficult inner work. It always looks for the easiest emotional escape. And even if I had promised her back then that I would change, that still wouldn't have meant much. At that stage, those could have just been words. So yeah, that was the beginning for me. That's how the change started.